there is a window. Not a permanent opening, not an unlimited opportunity, but a specific, heaven-appointed window of time that is open over your life right now. Windows do not stay open forever. Seasons shift, moments pass. And the ones who recognize the window while it is open are the ones whose stories become testimonies that shake generations. You are being warned today not to frighten you, but to awaken you. Because what is available to you in this window is greater than anything you have dared to ask for. You did not stumble upon this message. Let that settle deep into your spirit before you go any further. In a world of billions of people, in a sea of endless content, in a moment where your attention could have been pulled in 10,000 other directions, you are here, right now, reading these words. And that is not the result of an algorithm. That is not the result of chance. That is the result of a God who sees the end from the beginning, who knows your name, who knows your address, who knows every scar you carry and every dream you buried, and who has been orchestrating this very moment with surgical precision. Heaven has been pointing you toward this message, toward these words, toward this warning, because there are 3 days coming that carry your name on them. July 24th, July 25th, July 26th. Say those dates out loud if you can, because there is something powerful that happens when your mouth agrees with what heaven has already declared. These are not ordinary days on an ordinary calendar. These are not random dates that someone circled for the sake of building excitement. These 3 days have been marked by God Himself, set apart in the council of heaven, reserved in the divine ledger as appointed moments of visitation for people who belong to a specific category. Not everyone will feel the weight of these days. Not everyone will recognize what is moving in the atmosphere. But you will. And the reason you will is because you are not like the rest. You were never meant to blend in. You were shaped, formed, and sent into this earth with a mark on your life that distinguishes you from the crowd. And that mark is exactly why you are reading these words right now. Beloved, there is a language that heaven speaks that goes beyond the words of men. It is the language of appointed times, of seasons, of divine convergence, when the prayers you have been praying, the faith you have been holding, the tears you have been shedding in private, and the promises God has spoken over your life all come rushing toward a single point in time. That is what these 3 days represent. They are not the beginning of your story. They are the culmination of a chapter that has been building for longer than you realize. Every season of waiting you have endured was not wasted. Every moment of confusion that left you wondering whether God had forgotten about you was not punishment. It was preparation. And the preparation is done. The season of waiting is giving way to the season of walking into what was promised. You need to understand something about the nature of divine windows. In the book of Esther, there was a woman who lived in a palace, but had not yet stepped into her purpose. And there came a moment, a specific window of time, where her cousin Mordecai looked at her and said words that should echo in your spirit today. He told her that she had come to the kingdom for such a time as this, not such a decade as this, not such a general era as this, such a time as this. There was precision in that declaration. There was a specificity in heaven's appointment that Esther could either align with or ignore. She chose to align. She chose to step through the window. And the result was the salvation of an entire people. You are standing in your Esther moment. These 3 days are your such a time as this. The enemy of your soul is fully aware of what is approaching. Darkness does not fight what is powerless. Darkness does not scramble, does not push back, does not try to distract and discourage what poses no threat. The intensity of the resistance you have been feeling lately, the strange heaviness that has settled on your spirit, the whispers that told you it is too late, that you have missed your chance, that God has moved on and chosen someone else. Those whispers are not the voice of truth. They are the sound of a defeated enemy who has seen the calendar of heaven and is panicking. Because he knows what these 3 days carry. He knows what is about to be released over your life. And he has been working overtime to make sure you either miss the window or walk into it with your hands closed instead of open. But you are here. You received the warning. The window is still open, and that means everything. This message is going to take you on a journey through each of these 3 appointed days, unpacking what heaven is releasing, what God is asking of you, and what your response in this season will unlock for the rest of your life. But before we go any further, before we step deeper into the revelation that is waiting for you in these pages, you need to do one thing. You need to make a declaration, not because God needs your words to activate his plan, but because you need to hear yourself agree with what heaven has already decided about you. Type in the comments right now, "I am ready for my appointed time." Let those words leave your fingers and enter the atmosphere as a prophetic act of alignment. Let heaven record your response. Let the angels assigned to your breakthrough know that you are awake, that you are watching, that you are not going to let this window close without walking through it. Because the God who marked these 3 days marked them with you specifically in mind. He did not mark them for the perfect, the polished, the ones who have it all together. He marked them for the ones who are still standing after everything that tried to knock them down. He marked them for the ones who kept believing when believing felt impossible. He marked them for you. The window is open. The days are coming, and everything you have been waiting for is on the other side of these 3 appointed moments. Do not close this message. Do not set it aside, because what you are about to discover in the sections ahead will not just inform your mind. It will ignite something in your spirit that has been dormant for too long, and it will position you to receive everything that God has been holding in reserve, waiting for exactly this moment, exactly these days, exactly this version of you who finally said yes. You are still here. And that matters more than you know. The fact that you did not scroll past, did not close this message, did not let the noise of the world pull you away before these words could reach you, that is not a small. That is evidence that something in your spirit recognized what your mind is still catching up to. There is a knowing that lives deeper than logic, deeper than reason, deeper than the part of you that second guesses and overthinks and tries to calculate whether something is worth your time. That knowing brought you here, and that knowing is the voice of God confirming that what is ahead in this message belongs to you. But before we go deeper into the revelation of these 3 marked days, we need to talk about how you arrived at this moment. Because your journey to July 24th, 25th, and 26th did not begin this week. It did not begin this month. The path that led you to this appointed window was being paved long before you were aware of it, and every detour you experienced along the way was not a sign that God had abandoned the plan. It was a sign that God was protecting the plan. Think about the moments in your life that felt like failures. Think about the doors that closed in your face when you were certain they were meant to open for you. Think about the relationships that ended, the opportunities that dissolved, the seasons where everything you built seemed to crumble before you could enjoy it. In those moments, the enemy wanted you to write a narrative of rejection over your life. He wanted you to conclude that you were not good enough, not anointed enough, not faithful enough to receive what God had promised. But that was never the truth. The truth was that God was redirecting you. Every closed door was a form of divine protection, because behind that door was a version of your future that was too small for what God had already planned. He was not keeping you out. He was keeping you moving towards something greater. The Apostle Paul wrote in the book of Romans chapter 8, verse 28, that all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Notice what that verse does not say. It does not say some things. It does not say the pleasant things, the comfortable things, the things that made sense at the time. It says all things, the betrayals, the losses, the seasons of isolation where you felt completely unseen. All of it was working. All of it was being woven together by hands that never make mistakes into a tapestry whose full image you are only now beginning to see. And the image it has been forming is the image of someone standing at the threshold of 3 appointed days, positioned to receive what heaven has been preparing for them. You have carried more than most people will ever understand. There are things you have walked through that you have never spoken aloud to another human being. Burdens you have shouldered in silence because there was no one around who seemed capable of holding the weight of your story. There were nights when the tears came, not because you were weak, but because the load was genuinely heavy and you were carrying it alone. There were mornings when getting up felt like an act of warfare, when simply choosing to face another day required a level of courage that no one around you recognized or applauded. But God saw it. Every single morning when you chose to rise. Every single night when you chose to trust instead of collapse. Every single moment when you held on to a promise that felt like it was dissolving in your hands. God was watching, and God was recording, and God was saying, this is the one I am going to use. This is the one whose testimony is going to shake the earth, because that is what chosen ones do. They endure, they press, they keep walking when the path is dark and the destination is unclear, and every voice around them is suggesting they turn back. And then, when the appointed time arrives, when heaven opens the window and says now, they step through, and everything changes in ways that cannot be explained by natural reasoning alone. This is your now. These 3 days, July 24th, July 25th, and July 26th, they are not just approaching. They are arriving for you specifically because of the path you have already walked. Your struggles were not random suffering. They were the curriculum of a school that was preparing you for a graduation that happens in these days. Every lesson that felt too hard, every test that brought you to your knees, every season that stripped away the things you were leaning on so that you would have no choice but to lean on God alone, all of it was leading here. The delays were not denials. The detours were not disasters. They were directions, given by a God who knows the most efficient route to your destiny is not always the most obvious one. And so here you stand, not broken, though you have been bent, not defeated, though you have been pressed, not abandoned, though you have felt alone. Here you stand, at the edge of 3 days that carry the weight of its attention, and the only question that remains is whether you will walk into them with your eyes open and your hands ready to receive. Before we move forward, we want to pause and speak directly to your heart for a moment. This channel exists for one reason, and that reason is you. Every message, every word, every hour of prayer and preparation that goes into these videos is done with the sole intention of reaching people like you, people who are chosen, people who are in the middle of their journey and need to be reminded that they have not been forgotten, that God is still working, that the appointed days are still coming. That is the mission of this ministry, and it is a mission we take seriously. If these words have brought value to your spirit, If something in this message has stirred a fire in you that was beginning to dim, we want you to know that there is a way to help us continue reaching others who need to hear exactly what you are hearing right now. We have placed a support link in the description of this video. If you feel led to sow into this ministry, we receive that with gratitude, and we believe God will honor your generosity in ways that will surprise you. But we want to be clear, your support is entirely voluntary. Not a single word of this message is withheld from you because of whether you give or do not give. Every word belongs to you. Every revelation is yours to receive freely. And whether you are able to support financially or not, we are genuinely grateful that you are here, that you chose this message, that you are walking this journey with us. Your presence in this community is itself a blessing, and we do not take it lightly. What you can do right now, and we ask this with sincerity rather than obligation, is to like this video if it is speaking to your spirit. Share it with someone in your circle who needs to hear that God has not forgotten them, that appointed days are coming for them too. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already, so that you do not miss the messages that are coming. Because what we are building in this space is a community of chosen ones who are awake, who are aligned, and who are walking into their destiny together. One click of that subscribe button connects you to a flow of anointing that we believe will continue to meet you exactly where you are. Now, type in the comments below the words, "My delays were divine directions." Say it as a declaration of faith. Say it as an agreement with the truth that your path, with all its twists and unexpected turns, was never leading you away from your purpose. It was always leading you toward it. Because the God who marked July 24th, 25th, and 26th on heaven's calendar marked them, knowing every step of the journey you would take to get there. He knew the roads you would travel. He knew the nights you would cry. He knew the moments you would almost give up. And he marked those days anyway, because he also knew that you would make it. He knew that you would still be standing. He knew that you would find this message, and that these words would find the part of you that needed to be reminded. You are not lost. You are on schedule. You are arriving exactly on time, for exactly the days that heaven prepared, for exactly who you are. The window is still open, and what waits on the other side of July 24th is about to change your life in ways you are not yet prepared to imagine. July 24th is not just a date, it is a door. And on the other side of that door, heaven has positioned something that has been reserved, sealed, and protected specifically for you. Not for the version of you that existed 5 years ago. Not for the version of you that gave up and walked away. But for this version of you, the one who endured, the one who kept pressing, the one who is reading these words right now with a hunger in your spirit that the world around you cannot satisfy. That hunger is not a sign of lack. It is a sign of readiness. It is your spirit recognizing that what has been prepared for you is close enough now to taste, close enough to reach out and touch, close enough that even the atmosphere around you is beginning to shift. There is a concept in Scripture that carries enormous weight, and it is the concept of kairos time. In the Greek language, there are 2 words for time. The first is chronos, which refers to ordinary, sequential, clock-driven time. Hours that pass, the days that turn into weeks, the routine movement of life from one moment to the next. But kairos is something entirely different. Kairos is appointed time. Kairos is the moment when heaven intersects with earth, when the divine breaks through the ordinary, when God steps into the chronos of your life and says, enough waiting, enough preparation, enough endurance. Now is the moment. Now is the kairos. And July 24th carries a kairos frequency that your spirit has already been sensing. Even if your mind has not yet found the words to describe what you have been feeling. You have felt it, have you not? Something has been stirring in you. Not anxiety, though it may have worn that disguise at times. Something deeper. A restlessness that cannot be settled by sleep, a stirring that cannot be quieted by distraction. A sense that you are standing at the edge of something enormous, and that the ground beneath your feet is about to shift in a way that will change everything. That feeling is not your imagination running ahead of reality. That feeling is your spirit responding to what heaven is already doing. The angels assigned to your breakthrough are already in motion. The promises that were spoken over your life are already being activated. And July 24th is the day when what has been moving in the invisible realm begins to manifest in the visible one. Now let us talk about what specifically heaven is releasing on this first marked day. Because it is not vague and it is not general. It is targeted, it is precise, and it is directly connected to something you have been carrying for far too long. There are chains that exist not in the physical world, but in the spiritual one. Chains of limitation that have wrapped themselves around your potential and convinced you that you could only go so far, dream so big, reach so high. Chains of the past that have kept you tethered to versions of your story that God declared finished long ago. Chains of fear that have made you hesitate at doorways that God was holding open. Chains of unworthiness that have whispered to you in your most vulnerable moments that you are not the kind of person that God does great things through. These chains have names. Some of them were placed on you by words spoken over you in childhood. Some of them were forged through seasons of failure that left you doubting your own value. Some of them were welded on by the enemy of your soul, who understood early that if he could make you small in your own eyes, he would not need to fight you directly. You would fight yourself. But July 24th is a day of breaking. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 1, the prophet declared that God had anointed him to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners. That proclamation was not just a historical event. It was a prophetic declaration that echoes through every appointed moment when God decides to move on behalf of someone who has been held captive long enough. You have been held captive long enough. The chains that have defined the borders of your life up to this point are meeting their end on this first marked day. Not because you have suddenly become worthy of freedom in a way you were not before, but because the appointed time for your freedom has arrived. And when God decides it is time, no chain forged in hell is strong enough to hold what he has decided to release. Think about the story of Peter in the book of Acts, chapter 12. He was bound in chains, imprisoned between two soldiers, with guards standing at the door. By every natural measure, his situation was sealed. There was no logical path to freedom. But an angel of the Lord appeared, and in that moment of divine visitation, the chains fell off Peter's wrists. Text says they fell off, not that Peter struggled to remove them, not that he picked at them until they loosened. They fell, because when heaven moves, what has held you does not require a fight to remove. It simply falls. It cannot maintain its grip in the presence of divine appointment. And what is coming on July 24th is your angel at midnight moment. It is your chains falling moment. It is the moment when what has held you realizes it no longer has the authority to do so. There is something else July 24th carries, and it is the spirit of fresh vision. One of the most devastating things that long seasons of waiting and struggle can do to a person is steal their ability to see forward. When you have been pressing and pushing and believing for a long time with no visible result, a slow fog can settle over your spiritual eyesight. you begin to lose the image of the future that once burned so clearly in your spirit. The dream that once kept you awake with excitement begins to feel like a fantasy. The promise that once felt certain begins to feel like wishful thinking. And without vision, the book of Proverbs tells us people perish, not because they lack effort, not because they lack prayer, but because they lose the picture of where they are going. And without that picture, movement becomes aimless and hope begins to erode. July 24th is the day God stores the vision, not a modified version of it, not a smaller, more manageable, more realistic version of what you once believed for. The original vision, the one he placed in your spirit before the world had a chance to talk you out of it. The one that seemed too big, too bold, too far beyond your current circumstances to be taken seriously. That vision was not a product of your ego or your ambition. It was a seed planted by God himself. And he does not plant seeds he does not intend to grow. What the seasons of struggle buried, July 24th begins to resurrect. What the enemy tried to erase from your spiritual memory, the Holy Spirit is about to write again in letters so clear and so bright that you will wonder how you ever allowed them to dim. This is why you could not settle. This is why every attempt you made to lower your expectations and simply accept a smaller life left you feeling hollow and restless and profoundly out of place. Because you were not designed for a smaller life. You were designed for the vision. And on July 24th, heaven is giving it back to you in full. You may be wondering, as you sit with the weight of these words, how you are supposed to hold all of this. How you are supposed to stand at the edge of a day that carries this kind of significance without being overwhelmed by the magnitude of what is approaching. And the answer is simpler than you might expect. You do not have to carry it. You only have to receive it. The work of July 24th is not your work. It is God's work. Your position in this moment is not the position of someone straining and striving to make something happen. It is the position of someone who has fought long enough, endured long enough, and is now being invited to stand still and watch heaven move on their behalf. Exodus chapter 14 verse 14 speaks to you today as clearly as it spoke to the children of Israel at the edge of the Red Sea. God said to them, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." They had been running. They had been afraid. They were surrounded by what looked like certain defeat. And God told them to be still, not because he was minimizing the danger, but because he was about to demonstrate something that their striving could never produce. He was about to show them what happens when the appointed moment arrives and heaven decides to move. July 24th is your Red Sea moment. And just as the waters parted for a people who had been in bondage, the barriers in your life are about to part for a chosen one whose appointed day has finally arrived. You have crossed the threshold of July 24th, and something in your spirit has already begun to shift. The chains that were named in the previous moment of this message are already loosening their grip. The vision that was buried under seasons of waiting is already beginning to surface again, like a seed that has been underground long enough, and is now pushing through the soil toward the light it was always meant to reach. And now, as you stand in the current of what heaven is moving, you arrive at the second marked day, July 25th, and this day carries a different kind of weight. Not the weight of breaking, though breaking was necessary. Not the weight of restoration, though restoration was required. July 25th carries the weight of a question, a single, penetrating, life-altering question that God has been waiting to ask you, and that you have been, perhaps without knowing it, waiting to answer. The question is this: will you lay it down, not your faith, not your calling, not the vision that was just restored to you on July 24th? What God is asking you to lay down on July 25th is the weight you were never designed to carry in the first place, the burden of control, the exhausting need to understand every step before you take it, the quiet agreement you made somewhere along the way that you would trust God with your eternity, but manage your present circumstances on your own. The grief you have been holding that you have not allowed yourself to fully release because releasing it felt like losing something, even though what you have been holding was never meant to be permanent. The offense, the bitterness, the record of wrongs that you have kept tucked in the back rooms of your heart because some part of you believed that holding on to it was a form of protection. July 25th is a day of divine surrender. And before you resist that word, before the part of you that has been strong for so long bristles at the idea of surrendering anything, understand what heaven means when it calls you to surrender in this moment. It does not mean giving up. It does not mean admitting defeat. It does not mean that the fight was not worth fighting or that you were wrong to press as hard as you pressed. Divine surrender is not weakness dressed in spiritual language. Divine surrender is the moment you recognize that the God who created the universe, who formed you in your mother's womb, who numbered every hair on your head and ordained every day of your life before you took your first breath, is more than capable of carrying what you have been exhausting yourself trying to manage alone. Surrender is not the end of your strength. It is the beginning of His. In the book of Matthew chapter 11 verse 28, Jesus extended an invitation that was not casual and was not generic. He said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Notice the precision of that invitation. He did not say, "Come to me if you have it all figured out." He did not say, "Come to me when you are clean and whole and no longer carrying anything heavy." He said, "Come as you are, come weary, come burdened. Come with everything that is pressing down on you. Come with the unanswered prayers and the unhealed wounds and the questions that have not yet received their answers. Come exactly as you are, and I will give you rest. Not temporary relief, not a brief pause before the weight returns, real rest, the kind that restores what has been depleted and rebuilds what has been broken down. July 25th is your come to me moment. It is the day heaven sets a table in the middle of your weariness and says, "Put it down here, leave it here, walk away from it lighter than you arrived." Because what is coming on July 26th, the third and final marked day, requires a version of you that is not bent under the weight of what you have been carrying. The crown that is being prepared for you cannot rest properly on a head that is bowed down under burdens that were never yours to bear. And so July 25th does the work of alignment. It straightens what has been bent. It lifts what has been pressed down. It positions you in the posture of a recipient rather than a survivor. Think about the story of Mary and Martha in the book of Luke chapter 10. Two women, both devoted, both present in the same space, both in proximity to the same source of grace and truth. But one of them was distracted by many things. Martha was doing what she had always done, managing, serving, keeping everything moving, making sure all the practical needs were covered. And there is nothing wrong with what Martha was doing. Her service came from a genuine heart. But she had become so consumed with the weight of what needed to be done that she had missed the invitation to simply be present, to sit, to receive, to allow herself to be filled rather than constantly emptying herself for others. And Jesus looked at her with eyes full of love and said, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. That word is for you today. You have been Martha. You have been worried and upset about many things. You have been managing and serving and striving and carrying. And God is looking at you right now with those same eyes full of love and saying your name. He is saying you are worried about many things. But in this moment, on this second marked day, only one thing is needed. And that one thing is to surrender the many things into hands that can actually hold them, so that you can receive what has been waiting for you with hands that are finally free. There is a posture that July 25th requires, and it is the posture of open hands. Closed hands can hold what they already have, but they cannot receive what is being offered. And what heaven is offering you as you move through this second marked day is too significant, too weighty in glory, too abundant in blessing to be received by hands that are already full of what you have been white-knuckling through your season of struggle. Open your hands, release the control, release the timeline you have constructed in your mind for how and when God should move. Release the version of the future you have been trying to engineer through your own wisdom and effort. Open your hands and let God place in them what He has already prepared. We want to pause here and speak to you from the heart of this ministry, because what we are sharing with you in this message is not content we put together lightly. Every word in this script was prayed over. Every revelation was sought with sincerity. Every hour that goes into producing these videos, the research, the writing, the recording, the editing, the reaching of people around the world who need to hear that God has not forgotten them. It is done as an act of worship and service. This is a ministry, not a business. And like every ministry, it requires resources to continue. If this message has met you exactly where you needed to be met today, if something in these words has done something in your spirit that you cannot fully articulate, but you know is real, we want to humbly invite you to consider supporting the continuation of this work. There is a link in the description of this video. If you feel led by the Holy Spirit to sow into what God is doing through this channel, we receive that with deep gratitude, and we believe with you that God will honor your generosity in ways that exceed what you can currently see. Every contribution, regardless of its size, goes directly toward ensuring that this message reaches the next chosen one who is sitting somewhere right now, carrying too much, feeling forgotten, and desperately needing to hear that their appointed days are coming. But we want you to hear this clearly. If you are not in a season where giving is possible, that does not change a single word of what has been spoken over you today. You are not required to give in order to receive what God has for you in these 3 days. This message belongs to you freely and completely. We are simply grateful that you are here. We are grateful that you chose to stay. We are grateful that your spirit was hungry enough to seek out a word like this, and we are honored to be the vessel through which it reached you. Your presence in this community is a blessing to us, and we do not take it for granted. Now, as you stand in the threshold of July 25th, as you prepare to lay down what has been weighing you down and open your hands to what heaven is offering, speak this aloud wherever you are. Say the words, "I release what I was never meant to carry, and I receive what heaven has prepared for me." Let that declaration leave your lips as an act of agreement with what God is doing in this moment. Let it be the sound of a burden being set down and a blessing being reached for, because July 26th is coming, and what waits for you on that third and final marked day is the reason heaven marked these 3 days in the first place. You made it to the third day, and the fact that you are still here, still reading, still pressing into this message with your whole heart is itself a sign that you are the kind of person July 26th was designed for. Because this final marked day does not belong to the casual observer. It does not belong to the one who dipped a toe into the water of faith and then pulled back when things got uncomfortable. July 26th belongs to the one who walked through the breaking of July 24th, who surrendered the unbearable weight on July 25th, and who arrives at this third day empty of everything that was holding them back and full of everything that heaven poured in to replace it. You are that person. You have always been that person. And what waits for you on this day is something that the enemy of your soul has spent years trying to convince you that you would never see. It is your crown, not a metaphor, not a poetic symbol designed to make you feel good the moment and forgotten by morning. A genuine, heaven-issued, divinely appointed coronation of everything you were created to be and everything you were promised you would become. The book of James chapter 1 verse 12 says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." Read those words again and let them land somewhere deep. The crown is not promised to the one who had the easiest path. It is not promised to the one who never struggled or never doubted or never spent a night wondering whether any of this was real. It is promised to the one who persevered, the one who stood the test, the one who loved God not just when love was easy, but when love required something costly. That is you. That crown has your name on it. July 26th is the day heaven places it there. Now let us understand what a coronation actually means in the context of your life and your journey, because it is richer and more multidimensional than a single image can capture. A coronation is not just the receiving of a crown. It is the public declaration of a new identity. It is the moment when what you have always been in the eyes of God becomes visible and undeniable in the realm of the natural. It is the moment when the season of being overlooked, underestimated, and misunderstood gives way to the season of being recognized, positioned, and honored. Not by men, though that may come as well, but first and most importantly by heaven. When God crowns something, no opinion of man can uncrown it. When heaven declares something established, no force on earth has the authority to dissolve it. Your coronation on July 26th is a divine declaration, spoken from the throne room of God over your life, that what He purposed in you is now being publicly affirmed. Think about David. Here was a young man who was so overlooked by his own family that when the prophet Samuel arrived at his father's house to anoint the next king of Israel, David was not even brought in from the field to be considered. His own father did not think to include him in the line of candidates. He was tending sheep while his brothers stood before a prophet. He was doing the invisible work while others were positioned for the visible honor. And yet, when Samuel had looked at every brother and heard God say no to each one, God said to Samuel, "There is still the youngest. Go and get him." And David came in from the field, and God said to Samuel, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one no one thought to include, the one who was doing faithful work in a hidden place, the one whose heart was fully toward God even when no audience was watching." That was the one God chose. That was the one God crowned. You have been David in the field. You have been doing faithful work in places where no one was applauding and watching, and no one was sending the prophet to come and find you. You have been faithful in the hidden places, in the private moments of prayer, in the quiet acts of obedience that no social media post could capture and no human audience could appreciate. And God has seen every single moment of it. He has been watching you tend the sheep. He has been watching you remain faithful when faithfulness felt thankless. He has been recording every act of quiet obedience, every prayer lifted in an empty room, every choice to honor Him when honoring Him cost you something. And on July 26th, the prophet is coming to the field. God is saying, "Rise, this is the one. This is the moment. come out of the hidden place and receive what has always belonged to you. There is something profound about the nature of what God releases on this third marked day, and it is the concept of suddenly. Throughout Scripture, God operates in the dimension of suddenly. The disciples were gathered in the upper room, waiting as they had been instructed. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven like a rushing mighty wind. Paul and Silas were in prison at midnight, praying and singing hymns. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, and the foundations of the prison were shaken, and all the doors were opened, and everyone's chains were loosed. Suddenly is not a word that describes something that was slowly building and finally reached its peak. Suddenly is the language of the divine interruption. It is the language of heaven breaking into the natural order of things without asking permission, and without following the predictable patterns that human reasoning would expect. July 26th carries a suddenly. Not a gradual improvement, not a slow upward trend that you have to squint to see. A suddenly. A moment where the atmosphere around your life shifts in a way that is unmistakably the hand of God. Where doors that have been sealed open without you having to force them. Where provision appears in places you did not think to look. Where relationships are restored or new ones emerge that carry the fingerprint of divine appointment. Where the call that has been on your life since before you were born steps out of the realm of promise and into the realm of manifestation. Where everything that has been delayed converges in a single moment of divine release that makes every year of waiting make sense in an instant. This is what crowns do. They do not just adorn. They authorize. In ancient cultures, a crown was not merely decorative. It was functional. It was the physical representation of authority, access, and assignment. When a crown was placed on someone's head, it changed what they were allowed to do, where they were allowed to go, what resources they had access to, and what doors opened at their approach. The coronation on July 26th is not just about you feeling affirmed and encouraged, though you will feel both of those things. It is about you stepping into a new level of spiritual authority that changes how you move through the world, how you pray, how you speak, how you approach the assignments that God has placed for you. You will not just feel different after these 3 days. You will operate differently. You will see differently. You will carry yourself up with the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are and exactly who placed the crown on their head. There is a woman in the book of Ruth whose story echoes with the sound of July 26th. Naomi returned to Bethlehem after years of loss, years of grief, years of a life that looked nothing like what she had hoped for. She told the people to call her Mara, which means bitter, because she went out full and came back empty. But that was not the end of her story, because God had already positioned a kinsman redeemer. God had already been arranging the circumstances that would lead Ruth to the field of Boaz, that would lead to a moment of redemption so complete and so beautiful that the emptiness Naomi carried would be replaced with a fullness she could not have designed or orchestrated on her own. What looked like a story of bitter ending was actually a story of divine setup. The bitterness was the last chapter of the old season, not the first chapter of the new one. Your bitterness is not your identity. Your losses are not your legacy. Your empty season was the last chapter of what was, not the first chapter of what is coming. July 26th is the day your Boaz shows up. July 26th is the day the Redeemer makes his move. July 26th is the day God takes what was empty and fills it to overflowing with what He alone could have provided, in a way that only He could have orchestrated, at a time that only He could have appointed. Your crown is ready. Your coronation is scheduled. And the God who marked these 3 days marked them knowing that you would arrive at this moment, at this third day, with everything laid down and everything open, ready to receive what has always had your name on it. The enemy is not quiet right now, and if you have been paying attention to the atmosphere around your life in recent days, you already know this to be true. There has been a particular kind of heaviness pressing against you, a resistance that feels different from ordinary tiredness or everyday stress. A series of small frustrations stacking on top of each other in ways that feel almost orchestrated. Thoughts arriving uninvited that whisper you are not ready, that this is too good to be true, that people like you do not receive things like this, that the window has already passed, and you missed it without even knowing. If any of that sounds familiar, we need to talk about why. Because understanding the source of that resistance is one of the most important things you can do as you move toward these 3 marked days. Darkness does not fight what poses no threat. This is a principle that every chosen one must understand and carry deeply in their spirit. The enemy of your soul is not arbitrary in his attacks. He does not waste his energy on people who are walking in circles, going nowhere, producing nothing of eternal significance. He reserves his most concentrated opposition for the ones who are on the verge of something, the ones who are days away from a breakthrough that will not only change their own life, but will ripple outward and touch generations. The ones whose testimony, once released, will become the key that unlocks the prison of someone else who is sitting in. The dark wondering if God is real and if He cares and if there is any hope left for a person like them. You are that person. And these 3 days, July 24th, July 25th, and July 26th, represent a convergence of divine appointment that the enemy has been trying to disrupt long before you even became aware that these days were marked. Every discouraging thought, every wave of doubt, every sudden conflict in a relationship that seemed stable, every unexpected obstacle that appeared out of nowhere just as you were beginning to move forward with confidence. These were not coincidences. They were calculated attempts to destabilize you before you could arrive at what heaven had prepared. The opposition intensified because the reward intensified. The warfare escalated because the breakthrough approaching you carries a magnitude that darkness cannot afford to let happen without a fight. But here is what the enemy miscalculated. He thought the pressure would break you. He thought the accumulated weight of the resistance would finally convince you to let go of your faith and settle for something smaller. He thought that if he kept you busy enough, distracted enough, wounded enough, and weary enough, you would simply not have the spiritual reserves left to press into your appointed days with the expectation and the readiness that they require. He was wrong, because you are still here. You pressed past the resistance. You found this message. You are reading these words. And every moment you continue to press forward, in spite of what has been pushing against you, is a declaration of war against the plans of darkness. The book of Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12 tells us that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Paul wrote these words not to frighten the church, but to clarify the nature of the battle they were in. Because when you understand what you are actually fighting, you stop being confused by the resistance and start recognizing it for what it truly is: confirmation. Every wave of opposition that rises against you as you approach these 3 days is confirmation that what is coming is real, that what is being released is significant, and that the enemy would not be fighting this hard if there was nothing worth fighting over. The intensity of the battle is proportional to the magnitude of the victory waiting on the other side. You carry something that darkness finds deeply threatening. It is not your perfect track record, because no one has one. It is not your flawless faith, because faith that has never been tested is not faith at all. What you carry that terrifies darkness is your refusal to quit. Your stubborn, relentless, sometimes barely coherent grip on the belief that God is who He says He is, and that what He promised He will deliver. That kind of faith, tested faith, battle-worn faith, faith that has survived disappointment and delay and confusion and grief. That faith is the most dangerous weapon in the spiritual arsenal. It cannot be manufactured. It can only be forged in the fires of genuine hardship. And you have been in those fires long enough that what comes out of you now is not fragile and not easily shaken. It is refined. It is ready. And it is about to be deployed in ways that will demonstrate to every force of darkness exactly why they should have left you alone. There's a declaration in the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 17. That is not a suggestion and not a wishful prayer. It is a divine decree. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Not some weapons, not most weapons, no weapon. Every strategy the enemy has employed against your life, every assignment sent to derail your destiny, every scheme constructed in darkness to keep you from arriving at your appointed days, none of them have the authority to prosper. They can be formed, they can be launched, but they cannot succeed, because the God who marked these 3 days with your name on them is the same God who decreed that no weapon formed against His chosen ones shall prosper. The decree stands, the promise holds, and you are covered. Now, as we pause in this section of our journey together, we want to speak to you directly from the heart of what drives this ministry. Everything we do here, every message crafted, every word prayed over, every video produced and sent out into the world is done with one singular hope in mind, that a chosen one who is fighting a battle they feel they are losing will find these words and discover that they are not alone, that heaven sees them, that their appointed days are coming, and that the God who marked those days has not forgotten them. This ministry continues to reach people around the world because of a community of supporters who believe in what God is doing through this channel. If you have been blessed by this message today, if something in these words met you in a place that needed to be reached, we want to gently invite you to consider partnering with us in keeping this work going. There is a support link in the description below. Every contribution, however small it may seem to you, carries enormous weight in the kingdom of God. It means another message gets made. It means another chosen one, sitting somewhere in the dark, fighting the same battle you have been fighting, gets to hear that their breakthrough is coming. Your generosity does not just bless this channel. It becomes a seed sown into the lives of people you will never meet, but whose eternity your faithfulness helped to touch. And if this is not your season to give financially, we want you to hear this with absolute sincerity. You owe us nothing. This message was for you, freely and completely, from the heart of a God who wanted you to know the truth about these 3 days. We are simply grateful to be the messengers. What you can do, if it is in your heart to do it, is to like this video so that the platform knows this content is reaching people. Share it with someone in your world who is in the middle of a battle and needs to be reminded that their crown is coming. Subscribe to this channel so that you remain connected to the flow of what God continues to release through this space. These simple acts of engagement help us to reach more chosen ones, more people who are on the verge of their breakthrough and just need someone to tell them not to give up. The enemy knows that these 3 days are real. He knows the magnitude of what is approaching your life. And his greatest hope right now is that the resistance he has sent your way will convince you to close this message. Dismiss what you have felt stirring in your spirit and walk away from the threshold of your appointed days with your hands still empty. Do not give him that victory. Not today. Not when you are this close. Not when heaven has gone to this much trouble to make sure you found these words at exactly the right moment. You are not fighting a losing battle. You are fighting the last battle before the breakthrough. And the God who marked July 24th, 25th, and 26th on the calendar of heaven is the same God who is fighting every weapon formed against you and ensuring that none of them prosper. Stand firm, stay ready. The 3 days are almost here. God has never done anything without a pattern. From the very first words of Genesis, when he spoke light into existence and order emerged from chaos, to the final pages of Revelation, where the culmination of all human history arrives exactly as he declared it would, the fingerprint of divine precision is woven into every moment of Scripture. God does not operate randomly. He does not move impulsively. He works according to appointed times, sacred seasons, and prophetic patterns that he established before the foundation of the world. And when you begin to look at these patterns through the lens of what is approaching in these 3 marked days, something extraordinary begins to emerge, something that confirms, with a certainty that goes beyond feeling and beyond emotion, that what God is doing in July 24th, 25th, and 26th is not new. It is the continuation of a divine rhythm that has been beating since the beginning of time. Let us begin with the number 3. In Scripture, the number 3 is one of the most consistently significant numbers in the entire biblical narrative. It is the number of divine completeness. It is the number of resurrection. It is the number of confirmation. When God wanted to confirm his covenant with Abraham, he asked for 3 animals to be prepared for the covenant ceremony. When Jonah was swallowed by the great fish, he was in the belly for 3 days and 3 nights before being released into his new assignment. When Jesus was in the tomb, it was 3 days before the resurrection that changed everything. When Peter denied Christ, he did it 3 times. And when Jesus restored him, he asked him 3 times, "Do you love me?" Because restoration required the same number of affirmations as the denial. 3 is the number God uses when he wants to say, "This is complete, this is confirmed, this is not going to be undone." 3 days, July 24th, July 25th, July 26th. The pattern is not accidental, it is intentional. God is using 3 days to complete something in your life that has been in process. 3 days to confirm what he has been speaking over you in private. 3 days to resurrect what the enemy tried to bury. The biblical pattern of 3 is not a coincidence wrapped around these dates. It is a divine signature, God writing his name on this window of time so that you would know beyond any shadow of doubt that what is moving in these days is his doing and his alone. Now, let us look at another pattern, and this one reaches into the very heart of what God has been building in your life through every season you have walked through. It is the pattern of preparation, testing, and release. You see this pattern repeated throughout Scripture with a consistency that is impossible to ignore. Joseph spent years in the pit and the prison before he was released into the palace. The preparation phase was long, the testing phase was brutal, but the release phase was sudden and total. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness of Midian before God appeared to him in the burning bush and sent him back to Egypt to fulfill the assignment that had been on his life since birth. David spent years running from Saul, hiding in caves, living as a fugitive, before the day came when he was anointed king over all of Israel. In every one of these stories, the preparation was real, the testing was genuine, and the release, when it came, was unmistakably divine. You have been in the preparation phase. You have been in the testing phase. And these 3 days mark the beginning of your release phase. Not the end of your journey, but the end of a particular chapter. The chapter characterized by hiddenness, by waiting, by the kind of quiet faithfulness that no one around you has fully understood or appreciated. That chapter is closing. The release chapter is opening. And the prophetic pattern of Scripture confirms that when God has prepared someone long enough and tested them thoroughly enough, the release, when it comes, is not gradual. It is sudden. It is total. It is unmistakably Him. There is a feast in the ancient Hebrew calendar called the Feast of First Fruits, and it carries a prophetic significance that speaks directly into this moment. The Feast of First Fruits was the celebration of the first portion of the harvest, the initial wave of abundance that signaled the beginning of the full harvest season. It was the moment when what had been planted in the ground, what had been watered and tended in faith during a long-growing season, finally broke through and became visible and tangible and ready to be received. The first fruits were not the whole harvest. They were the announcement of the harvest. They were heaven's way of saying, "Look, it is beginning. What you planted is growing. What you believed for is coming. The full abundance is on its way." These 3 days are your feast of first fruits. They are not the totality of everything God has planned for your life. They are the first fruits of it. They are the announcement that the harvest season is beginning. They are heaven's way of breaking through the surface of your life and making visible what has been growing underground through all the seasons of planting and watering and waiting. What manifests in these 3 days is the beginning of a wave of abundance, restoration, and fulfillment that will continue to grow and deepen in the weeks and months and years to come. You are not receiving a one-time blessing and then returning to the ordinary. You are stepping into a new season, a harvest season, one that will keep producing fruit long after July 26th has passed. Let us look also at the pattern of divine appointments in the life of Elijah. Here was a prophet who had just experienced one of the greatest miracles in the entire Old Testament. He had called down fire from heaven on Mount Carmel. He had stood against 450 prophets of Baal and watched God vindicate him in the most dramatic and unmistakable way possible. And then, almost immediately after that stunning victory, Jezebel threatened his life, and Elijah ran. He fled into the wilderness, sat under a tree, and told God he had had enough. He was done. He was finished. He wanted to die. The man who had just witnessed fire fall from heaven was now lying under a juniper tree in despair, convinced that he was the only one left and that nothing was worth continuing. And what did God do? He did not rebuke Elijah. He did not lecture him about his lack of faith after everything he had just seen. He did not remind him of the fire on Mount Carmel and ask him why he was behaving as if God was not still God. Instead, an angel touched him and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." God met him in the wilderness with bread and water. He let him sleep. He fed him again. And then, strengthened by that provision, Elijah traveled for 40 days and 40 nights to the mountain of God, where a still small voice met him and gave him new direction and reminded him that he was not alone and that the work was not finished. You have had your Elijah moment under the juniper tree. You have had your season of lying down and saying it is enough. You have had your season of feeling like you are the only one left, that everyone else seems to be receiving their breakthrough while yours is nowhere in sight. And God has been doing for you what He did for Elijah. He has been providing the bread for the journey. He has been letting you rest in His presence. He has been feeding you through messages like this one, through quiet moments of prayer, through the inexplicable peace that settled over you in the middle of your hardest nights, through the scripture that seemed to jump off the page at exactly the right moment. All of that has been God saying to you, arise and eat, because the journey ahead requires more of you than where you have been living, and I am providing what you need to make it. The 40 days of Elijah's journey ended at the mountain of God. Your journey through the season of preparation and testing ends at the mountain of these 3 marked days. And just as God met Elijah on that mountain with new assignment and renewed purpose, and the reminder that the work was far from over, God is meeting you in these 3 days with everything you need to step into the next chapter of what He has called you to do and who He has called you to be. The still small voice that spoke to Elijah is speaking to you right now. It is not shouting. It is not demanding. It is simply saying, I am still here. I have always been here, and everything I promised you is still in motion. The prophetic patterns of Scripture do not lie. They have been consistent across thousands of years and countless lives, and they are consistent now in yours. 3 days, preparation, testing, release. First fruits announcing the harvest, the still small voice after the fire. All of it converges in this window of time that heaven has appointed for you. And the God who authored every one of those patterns is the same God who authored this moment in your story, with the same faithfulness, the same precision, and the same love that has never once wavered. Section 8. You are closer than you have ever been. The patterns have been revealed. The prophetic confirmation has been laid before you in the language of Scripture and the rhythm of divine history. And now, as you stand at the threshold of these 3 marked days, there is something that heaven is asking of you that is more practical and more personal than anything we have covered so far. Because revelation without response is just information. And God did not mark these days in heaven's calendar, did not orchestrate the path that brought you to this message, did not pour out the weight of what you have received in these pages, simply so that you would walk away feeling inspired and unchanged. He marked these days because He wants something to actually happen in your life. And what happens in these days is directly connected to the posture you choose to carry into them. There are 3 specific preparations of the heart that heaven is calling you to before July 24th arrives. Not rituals, not religious performances designed to earn what God has already decided to give you. These are postures, internal alignments, the positioning of your spirit in a way that makes you not just a hearer of what God is releasing, but a receiver of it. Because there is a difference between standing in the rain and being drenched by it. You can stand in the rain with an umbrella and stay completely dry. The rain fell. You were present, but you received nothing of it. These 3 postures are about putting down the umbrella and letting what heaven is pouring out actually reach you. The first posture is surrender. And we have touched on this already in the context of July 25th, but here we are going deeper. Surrender before these days means making a decision in advance. Before the days arrive, before you see how they begin to unfold, before you have any tangible evidence of what God is doing, you choose to release your grip on the outcome. You choose to say, God, I do not know exactly what these 3 days will look like in my life. I do not know whether the manifestation will be immediate and dramatic, or whether it will begin as a quiet shift that grows over time. I do not know which area of my life you are going to move in first, but I surrender my need to know. I surrender my timeline. I surrender my carefully constructed plan for how this is supposed to go, and I open my hands to however you choose to move. This kind of surrender is not passive. It is one of the most active and courageous things a human being can do, because it requires you to trust a God you cannot see more than you trust the circumstances you can see. It requires you to release control, and for many chosen ones who have been hurt, who have been disappointed, who have learned through painful experience that trusting people leads to being let down, releasing control feels dangerous. But God is not people, and His track record across the entirety of human history is one of faithfulness so consistent and so complete that even the moments that looked like abandonment turned out to be divine setup. Surrender to that faithfulness. Will not betray you. The second posture is expectation, and this is where many chosen ones stumble without realizing it. They pray, they believe, they confess the right scriptures and attend the right services and do all the right things externally. But somewhere in the interior of their spirit, hope has been so deferred for so long that a low-grade unbelief has settled in. Quiet enough that it does not announce itself as unbelief, but powerful enough to act as a ceiling on what they are actually prepared to receive. The book of Hebrews chapter 11 verse 6 tells us that without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to Him must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who earnestly seek Him. Notice the word rewards. God is not reluctant to give. He is not looking for reasons to withhold. He rewards, and the ones He rewards are the ones who come to Him with the kind of earnest expectation that refuses to be talked out of believing that He is good and that His promises are real. As you enter these 3 days, deliberately choose expectation, not the brittle, fragile kind that shatters at the first sign of delay, the deep, settled, unshakable kind that says, I do not know when, I do not know how, but I know that God is moving, and I know that what He promised is coming, and I am going to live these days with my eyes open and my spirit alert, because I do not want to miss a single thing He is doing. That expectation changes the atmosphere around you. It creates a spiritual environment that is receptive to the things of God in a way that passivity and resignation never can. The third posture is obedience, and this one requires a particular kind of honesty, because obedience is only meaningful in the areas where it costs something. If God is speaking to you about something in your life that you have been delaying, something you have been meaning to address but keep finding reasons to postpone, these 3 days are the time to stop postponing. Not because your obedience earns the breakthrough, but because your obedience removes the barriers that your disobedience has been creating. In the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 15, verse 22, the prophet Samuel told King Saul that to obey is better than sacrifice and to heed is better than the fat of rams. Saul had done many things right, but in the one area where God had given him a specific instruction, he had compromised, and that compromise cost him the kingdom. Do not let compromise in one area cost you the fullness of what God has prepared for these 3 days. Identify where God has been asking you to take a step you have been resisting, and take that step before July 24th arrives. Now, we want to pause here, and we want to say something to you that comes directly from the heart of everyone behind this ministry. We are a small team of people who are deeply in love with God and deeply committed to reaching chosen ones like you with messages that carry genuine weight and genuine revelation. We do not make these videos quickly or carelessly. Every message goes through hours of prayer, of seeking God for what needs to be said, of crafting words that will reach not just the surface of your mind, but the depths of your spirit. It is work that we consider sacred, and it is work that requires resources to sustain. If this message has done something in you today, if it has stirred faith that was dimming, if it has given language to something your spirit already knew, but could not articulate. If it has positioned you for these 3 marked days in a way that would not have happened without it, we want to gently and sincerely invite you to consider sowing into this ministry. The link is in the description below this video. Whatever you feel led to give is received with genuine gratitude and without any pressure whatsoever. We believe that God sees every act of generosity done in faith, and that He honors it in ways that go far beyond the financial. Your seed becomes a bridge that carries this message to the next person who needs it. And that is something worth investing in. If giving is not something you are able to do in this season, please hear us clearly. You are no less valued, no less welcomed, and no less celebrated in this community. What you can do, and what genuinely helps this message reach more chosen ones, is to like this video right now if it has spoken to your spirit. Share it with one person in your life who is in the middle of a battle and needs to be reminded that God has not forgotten them. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already, so that every new message we release finds its way to you without delay. These simple acts of support carry more weight than you might realize, and we are grateful for every one of them. And now, before we move forward, we want to invite you to do something in the comments section. Something simple, something powerful, a declaration that takes less than 4 words, but carries the weight of everything you have received in this message. Type these words right now in the comments below. I receive it now. 4 words, a declaration of expectation, a statement of surrender, an act of obedience. Let those words leave your fingertips and enter the atmosphere as your agreement with what heaven has marked for you in these 3 days. Let them be the sound of a chosen one who is ready, who is positioned, who has put down the umbrella and is standing with hands open and spirit expectant, ready to be drenched by everything that heaven is about to pour out. The preparation is complete. The postures are in place. And what comes next in this message is the part that will show you not just what God is releasing in these 3 days, but the full, breathtaking scope of the testimony He is writing about your life as you walk through them. There is a book being written about you. Not a metaphor crafted to make you feel significant in a fleeting, motivational kind of way, but a genuine, heaven-authored narrative that has been in the process of composition since before you drew your first breath. The book of Psalms, chapter 139, verse 16, tells us that God saw our unformed substance, and that in His book were written every one of the days that were formed for us, when as yet there was none of them before. You existed in the physical world. God had already written your days. He had already composed the chapters of your story. He had already mapped the trajectory of a life that would move through seasons of darkness and seasons of light, through valleys and mountains, through waiting and receiving, and would arrive at exactly the right moment, at the pages He had always intended to write. You are on one of those pages right now, and the page you are on is not a page of continuation of the ordinary. It is a page of turning, a page where the narrative shifts, where the tone changes, where the reader, if they could see your story from the outside, would lean forward because something is clearly about to happen. You can feel it. You have been feeling it throughout this entire message. That sense of standing at the edge of something enormous. That awareness that the atmosphere around your life is charged with a potential that has not been there before. That feeling is not imagination. That feeling is your spirit reading the page you are on and recognizing that what comes next in your story is the moment you have been pressing toward through every hard chapter you have endured. And the testimony that is being written about you is not a small one. Heaven does not invest the kind of preparation and testing and appointed everyday intervention that you have walked through in order to produce a small testimony. Small testimonies do not require 3 marked days. Small testimonies do not require the kind of spiritual warfare that has been pressing against your life as these days approach. Small testimonies do not require the prophetic patterns of Scripture to align in the way. They have aligned around this window of time. What is being written about you is a testimony of such magnitude that when you begin to speak it, when you begin to declare what God did in your life in and around these 3 days, people who have been sitting in doubt will find their faith reignited. People who have been on the verge of giving up will hear your story and decide to hold on for one more day. People who have never believed in the God who sees and the God who moves and the God who marks specific days for specific people will encounter your testimony and find themselves unable to dismiss it, because what God is about to do in your life will be undeniable. This is the weight of being a chosen one. It is not just about your personal blessing, though God delights in blessing you personally and specifically and abundantly. It is about the assignment that your blessing carries. Every testimony God authors is simultaneously a personal gift to the one who receives it and a public declaration to everyone who witnesses it. When God healed the blind man in the book of John chapter 9, the man did not simply walk away with restored sight and return to his private life unchanged. His healing became a testimony that echoed through the community, that provoked questions and conversations and confrontations, that forced people to reckon with who Jesus was. His personal miracle became a public declaration, and your testimony is designed to function the same way. Think about what your story already contains. Think about the things you have survived that should have broken you, the losses you carried that would have destroyed someone with less resilience, the seasons of faith you walked through with almost nothing to hold on to except the bare, stubborn belief that God was still there and still working even when every visible sign suggested otherwise. Think about the prayers you prayed in empty rooms, the tears you shed when no one was watching, the moments you chose to worship when your circumstances gave you every reason to complain. All of that is already material. All of that is already in the pages of the testimony heaven is writing about you. And what these 3 days add to that testimony is the chapter of resolution, the chapter where all the threads of your story that seem disconnected and confusing and painful begin to weave together into a picture so clear and so beautiful that you will find yourself looking back at every hard season with new eyes, seeing not the suffering you endured, but the preparation that was happening within it. Joseph understood this. After everything he had been through, after the pit and the slavery and the false accusation and the prison, after years of a life that looked nothing like the dreams God had given him as a young man, Joseph stood before his brothers who had sold him and said words that only someone who has seen the full picture could say. He said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." That is not a statement of denial about the pain. Joseph did not pretend the pit did not hurt, or that the prison was not real, or that the betrayal did not wound him deeply. He acknowledged the harm, but he placed it within a larger frame, the frame of divine intention, and within that frame, the harm became the instrument of a good that Joseph could never have reached by any other path. Your story has the same frame. Every harm that was intended against you, every wound that was meant to diminish you, every season of suffering that the enemy designed to disqualify you, God has been working within all of it with the intention of good, and the testimony being written about you will carry the same declaration that Joseph made. Not in spite of what you went through, but through it and because of it, you arrived at this moment. You arrived at these 3 days. You arrived at the threshold of everything God always intended for your life. There is something else the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 11, tells us about the power of testimony that must be planted in your spirit before these 3 days arrive. It says that the saints overcame the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. 2 things. The blood, which represents the finished work of Christ that secured your victory before the battle even began. And the word of your testimony, which is your active participation in the defeat of darkness through declaring what God has done in your life. Testimony is not just a blessing, it is a weapon. And the weapon being forged in your life through these 3 marked days is one that will continue to defeat darkness long after the days themselves have passed. This is why the enemy has fought so hard to keep you from arriving here with expectation intact. Because a chosen one who receives their breakthrough and then opens their mouth to declare what God did, it becomes a testimony that carries supernatural force. Every time you share what happened in and around these 3 days, every time you tell someone that God is real and that He marks specific moments for specific people and that He did not forget you and He will not forget them, you are wielding a weapon that the enemy cannot counter. He has no defense against a testimony born in genuine fire, genuine waiting, and genuine divine intervention. Your story terrifies darkness not just because of what God did in you, but because of what your open mouth will do to the kingdom of darkness when you begin to speak it. So as you approach July 24th with surrender in your heart and expectation in your spirit and obedience in your steps, add one more thing to your preparation. Begin to anticipate the testimony. Begin to make room in your spirit, not just for the receiving of what God is releasing, but for the declaring of it afterward. Begin to agree with heaven that what is about to happen in your life is meant to be shared, meant to be spoken, meant to reach the ears of people who need to know that the God who marked 3 days for you is the same God who has marked days for them. Your testimony is not just your story. It is someone else's breakthrough waiting to be triggered by the sound of your voice declaring what God has done. The page is turning. The chapter of resolution is being written. And the testimony that heaven is composing about your life is about to become one of the most powerful declarations of God's faithfulness that anyone in your circle has ever heard. You are standing at the edge of everything. Not the edge of a cliff, not the edge of collapse, not the edge of another season of waiting that stretches out beyond what you can bear. You are standing at the edge of everything you have been pressing toward, everything you have been believing for, everything that the long chapters of your story were always moving you toward. And the God who has been with you through every step of every hard chapter is the same God who is standing with you right now at this threshold, not behind you pushing, not ahead of you pulling, but beside you present and steady and unshakable, saying, "This is it. This is the moment. Step forward." You have walked through 10 sections of this message, and if you have been paying attention with your spirit rather than just your mind, something has been happening in you throughout this journey that goes beyond information received or concepts understood. Something has been awakening, something that was dormant, pressed down under the weight of too many disappointments and too many delays and too many moments of almost but not quite, has been stirring back to life. That stirring is not accidental. It is the breath of God moving over the dry bones of a dream that the world convinced you was dead, speaking the same words He spoke in the valley of Ezekiel's vision. He is saying, "Live." He is saying, "Rise." He is saying, The season of dry bones is over, and the season of standing army has begun. The 3 days that are marked for you, July 24th, July 25th, and July 26th, are not the end of your story. They are the hinge point of it. They are the moment in the narrative where the reader looks back at everything that came before and suddenly understands why all of it was necessary, why the detours were actually directions, why the delays were actually divine protection, why the seasons that felt like God had gone silent were actually the seasons when He was doing His most precise and careful work in the hidden places of your life, preparing a foundation strong enough to carry the weight of everything He was about to build on top of it. The hinge point changes the meaning of everything on both sides of it. And when you walk through these 3 days and emerge on the other side, you will look back at your story with eyes that see it the way God has always seen it. Not as a story of someone who suffered and survived, but as a story of someone who was chosen, prepared, tested, and then released into the fullness of their divine assignment. This is what chosen ones do. They endure the preparation because they trust the one doing the preparing. They press through the testing because they know that what waits on the other side of the test is worth everything the test cost them. They arrive at the appointed days not with entitlement but with gratitude, not with demands but with open hands, not with a list of requirements for how God must move, but with a surrendered spirit that says, however you choose to do this, whatever form this takes, I trust you, I receive it, I am in God, who sees the posture of that heart and is moved by it in ways that defy human description, steps into that surrender and does what only He can do. What He is about to do in your life is what only He can do. It is not the result of your striving. It is not the product of your performance. It is the fruit of His faithfulness meeting your faith at the intersection of an appointed time. And the result of that intersection is going to be a life that looks different on the other side of these 3 days than it did before them. Not because your circumstances will necessarily all change overnight, though some of them might, but because you will be different. Your vision will be clearer. Your confidence will be deeper. Your faith will carry a weight and a texture that only comes from having walked through fire and found God faithful in the midst of it. You will be a chosen one who not only knows their identity, but walks in it, unapologetically and unshakably, every single day. Before we close this message, we need to speak to you about something that comes from a place of complete honesty and genuine vulnerability. This channel, this ministry, this space where we come together week after week to declare truth over chosen ones like you, is a labor of love that comes at a real cost. And we want to be transparent with you because you deserve that transparency. This channel has had its monetization removed by the platform. That means the videos we pour hours of prayer and preparation into no longer generate the income that would normally help sustain the work. Many creators in that situations simply stop. They cannot justify the time and the resources required to keep producing content when the financial support that would normally come through the platform is no longer available. But we are not stopping, because this is not a business, this is a ministry. And the people we are called to reach, the chosen ones who are fighting battles that no one around them understands, who are pressing toward appointed days that heaven has marked for them, who need to hear that God has not forgotten them, and that their breakthrough is real, and that the patterns of Scripture confirm what their spirit already knows. Those people are worth every hour of unpaid work, every sacrifice of time and energy and resource that goes into making these messages. You are worth it. And we will keep showing up for you for as long as God gives us breath to do it. but we do want to gently and sincerely invite you. If this message has met you in a real way today, if something in these words has done something genuine in your spirit, to consider supporting this ministry through a donation, not because we are requiring anything of you, not because your access to this message or any future message is conditional on your giving, but because if you believe in what God is doing through this channel, your support becomes a direct investment in ensuring that the next chosen one, the one who finds this channel tomorrow, or next week, or next month, in the middle of their darkest night, receives the same quality of message, the same depth of prayer, the same genuine pursuit of revelation that you received today. The donation link is in the description below this video and in the pinned comment. Every contribution, whatever amount you feel led to give, is received with deep gratitude and with the belief that God will honor your generosity in ways that exceed what you can currently see. And if giving is not something you are able to do right now, we want you to hear this with absolute sincerity. You owe us nothing. But if you are willing to do a few simple things that cost you nothing but mean everything to this ministry, please like this video right now if it has spoken to your spirit. Share it with one person in your circle who is in the middle of a battle and needs to be reminded that their appointed days are coming. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already, because the messages that are coming in the weeks ahead are being prepared with the same level of care and prayer as this one, and we do not want you to miss a single one. These acts of engagement are how chosen ones find this space, and every like, every share, every subscription is a hand reaching out to pull another wounded, waiting, pressing chosen one into a place where they can hear the truth about who they are and what God has marked for them. You are not ordinary. You have never been ordinary. From the moment heaven decided you would exist, you were marked, set apart, chosen for a purpose that the world around you has not always been able to see or understand, but that God has never lost sight of for a single moment. These 3 days are the evidence of that. They are heaven's way of saying to you, I see you. I have always seen you. I have been working in everything you walk through. And now, right now, at this precise intersection of your faith and my faithfulness, I am releasing what I have been preparing for you since before the foundation of the world. Walk into July 24th with surrender. Walk through July 25th with open hands. Arrive at July 26th ready to receive your crown. And then open your mouth and declare what God has done, because your testimony is the weapon that will break the chains of someone else who is waiting for their own 3 marked days. You are chosen, you are prepared, you are right on time, and everything that heaven has marked for these 3 days belongs completely and undeniably to you.